Thank you all so much for having me here. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the lands of the Kaurna people and recognise elders past, present and future. It's particularly relevant when we're talking about food, given that they have nurtured these lands for thousands of years and we can still learn a lot from them. So it really is a privilege being asked to speak about food waste, and we are particularly focused on this, given that I head up Food South Australia, which is the peak body for South Australia's food and beverage manufacturers. So if I can go to the next slide. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Food South Australia. We are actually an independent, so that's non-government, industry-led member organisation. We do work very closely with government to really represent and promote South Australian food and beverage manufacturers. We're helping them to grow, to innovate, connect, and as part of innovation, obviously food waste really is an important component. And we're advocating across the entire food value chain. So that means primary producers right through to food service, and across that value chain, food waste is an issue, as you'll soon learn, and we offer tailored solutions for our members and also the whole food and beverage industry. So we run regular catch-ups, we have in-house membership support, we run overseas trade fairs, in-market advice, and one of the key things that we do is we run the Premier's Food and Bev Industry Awards, which is happening this year in November, and I'll focus on that, or I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of my presentation. So next slide. We operate under 5 pillars, which are under the acronym TASTE. Very easy to remember. And number 1 is transformation, and that is recognising that the world is moving at such a fast pace. And in order for our food manufacturers and related members, related businesses to stay abreast of this change, we do need to be changing. We need to be leading when it comes to innovation. And food waste really fits in on this because there's a lot of research that's being done to show how we can change our practices. We also are strong in the realm of advocacy, so we work closely with government, but also other industry associations. And for example, this webinar in and of itself fits under that pillar of advocacy. We offer support to all businesses, training also through education such as this and through our own market webinar series and education program that we're developing. And we really believe in the power of engagement. Collaboration has an enormous impact in terms of creating change, and that's why I was very keen to get on this webinar and share more about food waste with you. So the bigger picture, let's discover some stats about food waste. If you can go to the next slide, please. Australia's food waste, would you believe it, is one of the highest contributors to global warming. So we actually discard 7.6 million tonnes of food each year. And we have, based at the Waite Institute, where our Office for Food SA is, we have End Food Waste CRC. They've determined that that's enough food to fill the MCG oval 10 times over. I mean, it really is a significant thing. Next slide, thank you. Where is this food waste generated? One of the biggest percentages comes from primary production, so that's actually pre-farm gate, food that doesn't even make it from the farm to the plate. It gets discarded, but it still is a big contributor to global warming because of the methane gases that are released when it decomposes. The other major contributor to food waste is in households, and I'm sure you can all recognise that too. The amount of food that doesn't actually get consumed and ends up either in compost or in our green bins, not only costing our pocket, but also having a big impact on the environment. Next slide, thanks. I'll keep talking while we're finding the next slide. And so, as I mentioned, greenhouse gases. I'm sure everyone on the webinar today is aware that as food decomposes, it releases methane. And this emission really does have a massive impact on climate change. So, for that reason alone, it's really something that needs and warrants your attention. Also, water use. So, uneaten and lost food waste contributes to loss of millions of litres of water each year. And of course, the more food that we grow, the more that impacts on deforestation and land. I was watching a documentary only last week on how cattle farm growth is actually contributing to Amazon deforestation because of the demand for beef, particularly in America, is growing so much so that they're still continuing to cut down forests. So as we waste our food, it means that we're requiring more production still, and so it is actually meaning that land use is changing from forest to production land. If we can use our food better, then obviously that's not going to have the same impact. Next slide, thanks. And of course, this has a big impact on the bottom line. In fact, it costs annually $36.6 billion to businesses to cover that cost of wasted food. An exceptional initiative that has come out of End Food Waste CRC is the Australian Food Pact, and more businesses are signing up to that, and that's a resource that can help businesses really understand how they can reduce their food waste, and it has saved businesses who have signed up to that $60 million so far. We also have to consider the reputational impact of food waste, because many people would know that consumers now are really considering sustainable practices of the businesses that they support, and particularly in the food arena. They're asking the question, what sort of sustainable practices do you employ in your business? And those that don't practice sustainability simply, if they don't have an eye to that, they're finding that people are actually turning away from their products and turning to those who have more favourable practices. So reputational risk is something that needs to be considered going forward, that if you don't have an eye to ending your food waste black marks, or erasing your black marks, or introducing better practices, that it can actually impact your bottom line. Next slide, thanks. So fortunately in Australia, we do actually have some national food waste targets. We have key milestones that have been put in place for 2030. And that is an ambitious target, and I think really achievable target, and that is halving food waste by 2030. There's the development of a framework, and that includes funding that has been given to End Food CRC, End Food Waste CRC, that has done some really important scientific studies. So the framework's in place to enable us to be able to halve the food waste. A lot of industry engagement to ensure that everyone is educated and understands what they need to do and how they can achieve those targets. And of course, tracking progress to make sure that we get to that really important goal. Next slide, thanks. So, of course, for businesses who do start paying attention to lowering food waste, there are numerous benefits, as I've mentioned. One of the most important things, I think, for businesses in these tough times is that you will actually lower your operational costs. So studies have shown that those businesses that pay attention to this will actually save money. So for every dollar that companies invest to reduce food loss and waste, they actually save $14 in operational costs. So that's a stat that has come out of this research, and I think that's pretty compelling. You obviously increase your revenue by utilising resources better. If you don't have that waste and that's actually going out and instead being sold, then that's a win-win situation for sure. And of course, enhancing your brand image and your customer loyalty. I think in South Australia, in particular, we have very parochial consumers who want to buy South Australian. But as cost of living hits the back pocket, we are finding that people are weighing up where they spend their money. And if you can say that you're actually contributing to saving the planet and helping reduce carbon emissions, then it's a persuasive message that will perhaps get people supporting you when they are questioning brand loyalty. The environmental benefits of reducing waste are they're really clear. Of course, you're going to decrease greenhouse gas emissions significantly. You're going to make sure that water is used more efficiently and not wasted. And overall, you are going to be a champion for sustainable practices. And you would all know that creating change anywhere does mean you have to create a groundswell. You have to have a community of people that come together and advocate for that change. Change can be difficult, no doubt. But there are, in this case, multiple advantages of taking action. Next slide. Thanks, Mavina. So an overview of some of the successful initiatives. It has been demonstrated, it has been proven that these savings are there. And again, whilst it does take more effort in order to reduce your food waste, I know the businesses that are going to get online soon are going to speak about how you can actually do that. There is, of course, the emissions reduction. And I think when it comes to collaborative efforts, it's not just about reducing the numbers, but it is showing what is achievable when people come together like this. Next slide, thanks. So, some calls to action. What are some of the really simple steps that you can take to reduce your food waste? Well, firstly, do you know how much food you're wasting at the moment? And I say this not just to food manufacturing businesses, but to any business. Are you aware of what is getting wasted? We saw those stats before on household waste, and we know in our offices as well how much food gets put in the bin. Do you actually know how much is being put in the bin? Can you turn your attention to that? Do you have a composting bin where you can measure how much is actually going out the door? Because whilst we think that composting is a positive thing, unnecessary composting, again, does contribute to global warming. Set some achievable targets for reduction. What can you do? Can you buy less? Can you order less? Can you encourage your consumers, if you're a food manufacturing business, to be mindful of their food waste? What sort of things can you do? Even just holding a meeting within your office to brainstorm different ones, or doing some research online. ChatGPT can be an exceptional resource for brainstorming this. And then when you find out those best practices for your industry, and there are many different approaches that you can take, make sure that you put them in place. I'm a big believer that even if you do one thing differently, that cumulatively is going to create change. Then track your progress, celebrate your progress. Do you report on this? Is it something that you can introduce into regular reporting so that everyone in your team or your organisation is across this? And by doing that, you can engage your employees in sustainability initiatives. You could be part of educating for change.